So one of the things that people need to understand about the last days is the last days was about the immediate audience that Jesus was directly speaking to. Jesus made very specific promises to the disciples about what they should expect in their lifetimes. As a matter of fact, in Matthew 16:28, Jesus said, "Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here," because he's talking to the people who are in front of his face, some who are standing here, meaning the disciples, some of the disciples will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I don't know why we've read that verse 1,000 times, probably, and nobody has ever told us that Jesus is making a promise to the people right in front of his face about what they should expect. He's literally telling the disciples that some of them are going to be alive to see his kingdom come. Matthew 10:23, when you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. Once again, Jesus is making a promise that they're going to have to go to different towns, and they, the disciples, they are not going to run through all the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. That is not a verse that you can apply to anybody today, because Jesus is speaking to the disciples about how they are going to be persecuted, and when they are persecuted, they're not going to outrun all the towns of Israel. Most of us don't live in Israel. Many of us live in America. Why would anybody persecute you? And then Jesus is going to tell you in 2023 who lives in America that you're not going to outrun all the towns of Israel, because he's not. Jesus is making a promise to the disciples that his coming is going to be not before they outrun all the towns of Israel. Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened." What generation will not pass away? The generation of people that is right in front of his face. We do this thing where Jesus talks in the Bible and he has a conversation with people. And usually when people have conversations, you say something and they say something. They say something and you say something. Whenever Jesus is talking in the Bible, why do we insert ourselves into the conversation? Whenever we see words like you and they and this, or even terms like this generation, when Jesus is speaking, he's talking about the generation of people in front of his face. So why do we think when Jesus is saying this generation, the people he's talking to, why do we insert our generation? When Jesus is talking to the disciples and he says you, why do we think that's talking about us? The last days, for people who don't know, the last days was about the last days of Israel, because Israel killed the Messiah, and God's wrath, God's judgment had boiled up against Israel for the final time, and God was going to judge Israel, not America, not Australia, not New Zealand. God was going to judge Israel because they killed the Messiah. And when God judged Israel, God was finally going to make a covenant that was going to be new. There's a lot more to go into this, but first we need to understand that the last days was about the immediate audience that was alive when Jesus was alive. It doesn't make any sense for Jesus to give the disciples signs to look out for. And these signs are not going to be able to be seen until 2,000 years later. Why would Jesus give signs to the disciples about what they should expect, and they are not going to be alive to see the signs? That makes absolutely no sense. The disciples wanted to know what signs should they look for the second coming of Christ. And most of us think that Jesus is giving signs for us 2,000 years later. This is why we can never understand his book, because when it comes to the Bible, we have been brainwashed to not understand the Bible in its immediate context and its cultural context. I'm going to make some more videos talking about the last days and talking about this stuff in more detail. But if you guys want to learn more about this stuff, get my books in my bio, Secrets of the Bible from the East. The discount code today is BOOKS. It'll give you $20 off, and my books come in a bundle. You're going to get Secrets of the Bible from the East, Volumes 1 and Volumes 2. They come in a bundle together. They will be directly emailed to you. If you've never heard about cultural context before, audience relevancy, if there's things in the Bible that you kind of knew that the interpretation of your pastor wasn't correct, the interpretation of whatever wasn't correct, but you couldn't really put your finger on it. You couldn't put your finger on it because you didn't know that you needed a certain cultural context so you can read this cultural book. Your Bible is a book from the ancient Near East. And if you do not have an ancient Near Eastern perspective, you will never understand your Bible, ever. You can get my books by going to the link in my bio. Discount code is BOOKS. Share this video around. And if you still do not think, or if you don't understand that Jesus was making promises to the people in front of his face, why do you think, and you guys can comment this below if you disagree, if Jesus is not making promises to the people in front of his face, who is he talking to? All right, guys, I'm off here.